you got to wonder where the lies start, right? Does the lie start all the way down with, yeah, we just trained these 4 new recruits to the Afghan security forces, and they're great. They're doing a great job. And those lies just multiply and add up and build up and add up and build up to where Joe Biden is like, hey, we really have 300,000 troops there. They're really going to be helpful for you. You're fine. 300,000 versus 80,000. It's fine. I mean, that's the intel that he's getting. Look, I am not a Joe Biden fan. I'm not defending Joe Biden. The guy needs to be put into a nice, comfortable rocking chair with a blanket over his lap and a nice book in his lap if he can read, and a cup of tea and the whole thing. Somebody pat him on the head every once in a while, tuck him in, wipe his nose.
Sponge baths.
Yes. Well, I'm not volunteering or sicking that on anybody, but like it's compounding lie after 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 lie. And, you know, really, the president is a guy that's up there playing Risk. You know, he's got the board, he's got the pieces. He can only depend on the information that he's been giving. And it's, from my perspective, it seems like the entire military industrial complex is just filled with liars, scoundrels, and thieves who are not doing their job.
But they want war.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So are you saying that, you know, Biden wanted to withdraw, and so it's the military industrial complex that screwed it up and gave him bad info, or what do you mean? I
think that when you've got Biden and his team and the wokeified apparatus that's now taken over everything, their focus is always on the wrong thing. They're always focused and they're putting their attention on the wrong thing. So whenever they take action, it's the wrong action. Because their focus is on wokeness. It's on, you know, making sure that the, what are my words I can't say over here, making sure that the army is diverse enough, making sure that they're dealing with white rage and these things, and they're not making sure that the facts and the information that they're getting are accurate. And so they're just taking these things at face value. Basically, you can't take anything at face value anymore. Nothing.
But is it lies or is it collapse, right? So I'll put rot. Imagine the military is a bunch of, you know, you ever see that meme where it's like 2 people standing on a cliff, and it's like a beautiful city and they're hugging, and then holding the cliff up is a bunch of soldiers that are like bleeding, and one guy's pointing a gun and they're holding it up. Yeah. It's making a point about how this comfort and this luxury is based on it. So imagine that support structure of all of these dudes holding up society. Not that I'm a fan of the Afghan war by any stretch of the imagination, but you start corrupting and rotting those support beams, and they start just writhing and falling and collapsing, and then eventually the structure loses support, the whole thing falls down. Yep. So is it really lies, or is it? Here's the way I see it. And I'll do a side note here. We got a video removed. We got a strike on TikTok because
on TikTok.
On TikTok, because I said in a video, it's clear Biden is in charge, that there are no adults in the room. And that when Biden's talking in these meetings and says stuff, people just go along with whatever he says and don't challenge him. He's got sycophants and bureaucrats who don't want to stick their neck out. And Biden's clearly not with it. And so we got to strike for that. But I stand by that. I think what's happening is you've got, you know, Kamala, Milley, you know, other people, right? The National Security Advisor, you've got Jen Psaki, and they're like, I'm not saying anything. It's like Joe Biden walks in, he sits down, and we heard him say, Trina on a shot of pressure on TV. What do you think he's saying in private? Right. When he's sitting there and they're all sitting around him and he's like, Kabul, Kamaja, do it. And they're like, whatever you say, Joe. And they just walk out shrugging.
We know one of the things he says in private, which is, hey, leader of Afghanistan, lie to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it was when he said whether it's true or not.
Yes.
Whether it's true or not, just lie if you have to, but trick people.
Do you wish anything would have gone differently in Afghanistan? Yeah, dude, I wish the president wouldn't have fled.
You know, this whole like woke crap, it's like they didn't want to hurt the Taliban's feelings. We had an out date by September 1st or August 31st. What you do as a military, if you're not prepared to leave a war that you're winning, you extend the deadline.
Well, were we winning?
Yeah, we were dominating that country. We controlled the country. We had we had air support. We had logistics. We had total opportunity to withdraw safely everything over time. And they just chose to surrender. Biden surrendered when we were winning the war. He didn't just issue a white peace and walk away. He surrendered our equipment.
I actually agree. I agree with. I think so. I agree. Yes. In that sense, I would say. When I say I don't know if we were winning, it's like it's 20 years in attrition and soldiers are dying every year, and there was some serious attacks the past few years, and I'm like, I don't know if it's winning if we're in a country we don't need to be in to colonize our nation build from people who don't want us to be there. I don't know what we're trying to win other than invading this country. But from what you're saying, in that sense, yes, we not only did we have control of the country, but we did have the Afghan National Army. And I think this story is the perfect example of how it all broke. It's amazing. It's the breaking point. It's almost like there really was a system in place, not a good one. I still believe there would have been chaos and conflict, but it's like Joe Biden, the administration made sure to find the one support beam they could strip out to make sure it all went smack down and collapsed on the way out. They pulled logistics and air support. They abandoned the Air Force Base around Kabul, or Bagram, near Kabul. They couldn't do evacuations. It really felt like of all of the things they could have done, they did quite possibly the worst thing. I guess the worst thing would be to bomb your own, like the civilians. Okay. So in the sense of strategy for the withdrawal, this was the worst thing they could have done.
Yes. A premature surrender.
In getting the withdrawal executed, sure, there was a lot of tactical and operational errors for sure. But we were losing that war the minute we started.
Well, it's not a war with a valuable goal. I think it was a pointless endeavor, but we were dominating in force. We were winning the force.
But were we
battle.
really, though? Because the whole point, I guess, well, not the whole point, but one of the points of being there was to build up this army that was going to be able to defend Afghanistan from all these other bad guys. And in the very first possible moment where they were there to do the job that they were trained for, they didn't just do the job poorly. They just said, just kidding, we're not even doing it.
Oh, but I agree and disagree. I think they certainly did a poor job, but there's a video of Afghan commandos fighting back, defending, territory from the Taliban, and they run out of ammo. And the Taliban comes in, so they drop their guns, and the Taliban executes them. There's video of this happening. They post it. Taliban wants to post their victories. Right. You have Joe Biden abandoning Bagram in the dead of night without telling them.
Right.
So it's like, if you've got, you're a country that's been built up by 20 years of occupation. America comes in. They build up this whole apparatus in Afghanistan, and they say, it's our airbase. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the logistic. Here's the contractors. And you're like, okay, I guess. And there's no handoff of power. And then all of a sudden, one day, the Taliban is storming in because you're pulling out. And you're like, all right, let's go. Where's our Air Force? Nobody's there. What do you mean nobody's there?
Right.
They did fight. Right. And not every single one.
But
we had Afghan National Army defending the Kabul airport. And I think, initially, this was my mistake, too. When Biden came out and said, you have Afghan, security forces unwilling, or he said, why should we send the next generation of Americans to fight a war the Afghans are not willing to fight themselves? And I was like, it's a good point. And then I started reading the reports. I started reading the experts, reading the timeline of events. And I was like, yo, that's brutal. Some of these guys did fight really, really hard, but Biden pulled support on July 1st.
Sure. So I'm sure some of them were definitely, dyed in the wool true believers, Afghan army fighters wanting to defend themselves and their country from the Taliban. But if you take it a couple other data points, one, the Pew study that says 99% of Afghanistani citizens want to have Sharia law enacted, and you contrast that with our efforts to take Afghanistan into modernity by teaching them gender studies, by trying to actually, encourage homosexuality and all these things, and women's rights and yada yada yada. The culture clash. Thinking of that Coen Brothers movie, Culture Crash. The culture clash there was irreconcilable, and the civilizational clash was irreconcilable. And just one last point on this: the whole American military machine is supported by this enormous logistics infrastructure, right? Air support, weapons and development, research and development, supply chains, manufacturing, all these things. And they trained, apparently, and I'm not an expert, but I do talk to many, they trained the Afghan army to operate the same way that the United States military does, which requires this gigantic infrastructure behind it. Right. And so the minute you pull that infrastructure out, well, then, of course, it's stupid. It's like giving the whole Afghan army a bunch of Teslas to drive and then taking away the electricity.
Did you see that?
That's actually a really good metaphor.
There's a photo. I don't know if it's real
or analogy,
but it's a Taliban guy pointing a gun at a bunch of civilians who are like shocked and scared, and they're standing up against a wall of like the UN security goals or whatever. I don't know if that's true because it's awfully convenient, but I'm like, it was a convincing photo nonetheless, and it was like, here's our sustainability goals, or whatever the plan they got the website.
Taliban's all about the memes these days, I hear.
Posting memes, man.
They're killing it on Twitter, dude. Killing it on Twitter.
Now hold on. It's not all bad news because we have this story from Politico. We have another story too. Apparently, Mark Milley says it's possible the U.S. will work with the Taliban. Because of ISIS-K.
Cool.
So we have that, and then we also have the Biden administration is now considering giving the Taliban cash aid if they uphold their international obligations. So it seems like Biden's strategy was like, well, We can pay to have people there on the ground securing the country indefinitely, or we can pay the Taliban to just do whatever as long as they do the things we like. We know how that plays out. You give the Taliban cash, you encourage all the bad things they're doing, because then they're like, we'll keep doing bad things unless you give us more money. Then you give them money, the bad things go down for a few months, and they start coming back, and they say, well, maybe you got to give us more money. It's like that trope where the guy like walks, the private detective walks in, and he's like, I need information. And then he's like, maybe I need a little cash. And then he hands him money, and the guy goes, maybe I need a little bit more. And he keeps milking it as much as he can. Yeah, you can't do that. It doesn't work.
Well, when you lose a war, the loser always pays, period. We lost a war, therefore we pay. None of that surprises me. When you lose a war, you pay money. Yeah. Ask England, or even if you help somebody win a war, they still pay.
Well, you can also end a war with what's called a white peace, which is where nobody wins and nobody loses. It's just the war just stops. And that's probably what should have happened. But they surrendered. That's a different form of ending a war. That's when you give them money.
I think all this comes back to our original question that we formulated a while back. Dumb or diabolical?
Yes. Great game.
Dumb or diabolical? I'm leaning dumb here.
They're going to work with the Taliban and give them cash? I don't know if that's. I mean, it could be dumb and diabolical.
No, I just mean the entire thing is dumb. Every decision to go in, going all the way back to George W. Bush's decision to go in there, his announcement in the second inaugural address where he says that the American foreign policy goal is to end tyranny across the world. What? That was a radical transformation of American foreign policy that was doomed from the start. It's representative of progressive ideology, and it has now played out over 20 years where along the way, we tried to gender studies them up and the whole thing to make them peaceful and modern just like us, and it failed, it failed, it failed, it failed. It's dumb, 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 dumb all down the way.